Well, good morning, everybody. To get us started today, I want to show you the last 72 hours of total accumulated snowfall across the country. And this ended on Sunday evening. So that's the time period we're looking at, Friday through Sunday. And you can see the heavy snows that did fall through parts of the Midwest and through here, the snow we got over the weekend in parts of New England, and then the big system that dipped into the west on Saturday. You notice that parts of the Sierra Nevada mountains picked up over 4 feet of snow. One of the things we're going to do tonight in the in-depth look is just see how this early season snowpack is kind of adding up here. Just kind of give us a quick check on what to expect in terms of drought relief going into 2023, because the West will go into a drier finish to the end of this year, colder and drier to finish this year. In terms of total accumulated precipitation, this is what we've got through 7 a.m. this morning. And again, one of the wettest places has really been parts of the Mid-South right in through here. We're going to see quite a bit more precipitation coming into this area. But where the map's really going to fill in is throughout much of the Midwest, the upper Midwest and northern plains, while the West, again, goes over into a drier time period. The all hazards weather map is quite busy today. So we've seen the issuance of blizzard warnings that stretch from parts of the high plains, getting into the western plains here, a large area around that with winter storm warnings, winter storm watches surrounding that area. We're on the lookout also for some severe weather. A 3-day event starting today in the high plains, tomorrow in the lower Mississippi River Valley, and then on Wednesday down here along the Gulf Coast. And this system that's coming through is going to be producing very strong winds. We'll see synoptic level winds here in the 30 to 50 mile an hour range in the midsection of the country. And that's what's going to push this past the blizzard criteria. So blizzard criteria, by the way, from the National Weather Service is 35 mile an hour winds, quarter mile or less visibility with snow. Doesn't matter how much, just with snow. And that all has to last for at least 3 hours. So that's what's going on in this area being forecast here. So this is the system by tomorrow. And we're going to see a very quick change in the wind direction. And it's going to give us a pretty well-pronounced dry slot that will come in the backside of this. That was one of the main things we talked about last week. But this front you see here tomorrow, which will be advancing toward the lower Mississippi River Valley today, will be responsible, be a little bit back farther to the west than what I'm showing you here, but it will be responsible for increasing the risk of some strong to severe storms. So after we saw on Saturday the evolution of this system, the Storm Prediction Center, I think very wisely went back to a slight risk across a broad section here of the southern plains. We're going to be watching out for some isolated storms that could be rotating. The wind shear is very high in this area, so we'll keep a very close eye on that. Tomorrow might be the biggest risk day in terms of the chances of seeing the most strong storms over the lower Mississippi River Valley. There's now an enhanced risk here, but you could see thunderstorms pretty far to the north into mid-Mississippi River Valley back through this part of the Missouri River Basin. So we're going to have to watch out for this system carefully as it kind of wraps its way through the midsection of the country. And again, once we get into Wednesday, it'll be down here along the Gulf Coast. We'll keep a close eye on. Okay, from there, let's now talk about ice. This is a great figure put out by the Weather Prediction Center, and we're just looking here at where we have the greatest chances of seeing ice accumulating more than 1/10 of an inch. There's going to be a large warm sector out ahead of this. We'll get some overrunning in this area, and that's why we see these 3 different areas setting up for some ice. There's going to be some cold air damming along the Appalachian Mountains, which is why parts of Virginia and West Virginia see ice potential as well. But again, this is the probability of at least 1/10 of an inch of ice. Now, I just want to show you the snow maps right away so we can kind of watch this unfold. This is this morning's 0Z run from the ECMWF looking at 10-day total accumulated total accumulated snow. This is made using the 10-to-1 ratio, so 10 inches of snow for 1 inch of liquid equivalent. And you can see that there will be places in here that are capable of picking up well over a foot, and some places maybe over 20 inches of snow out of this. Now, it's going to be a very difficult forecast right in through here. I think Sioux Falls might be the trickiest to forecast in this particular case. I'll show you why in a second. But I do want to let you know that later on this week, as this system occludes and wraps out into the northeast, I want to keep an eye on this. I don't have a ton of confidence in the snowfall amounts being predicted for the interior of New England, but I want to show you the latest data here from the European model on what it's looking like. Now, why this is so tricky is because we actually have 3 different cutoff lows. There's 1, 2, 3 by the middle of this week. And here's the big one in the middle. But the main jet stream flow is weak in its north. So we have what we call a lot of meridional flow. That's more north-south movement in the jet stream than west to east. And because this is cut off, it's going to take a while. So it entered on Saturday. It won't make it all the way to New England until this upcoming Friday and into Saturday. So it's a very slow-moving setup. But to see a jet streak rounding the base of this trough, this is going to give us some just absolutely perfect upper-level support in terms of divergence here, both due to the curvature of the flow and the jet streak dynamics make a pretty powerful low. So we need to go look at this. I was already watching it here, so let's take you back to this morning. This is going to start us off at 8 a.m. Remember, the greens are rainfall, the pinks represent ice, and the blue snow. So as we play through the day today, what I want to first watch out for is a couple things. By 8 p.m., you notice there's a large area in the NAM model that suggests there could be some light ice accumulation in this area. We'll have scattered showers out ahead of it. Right in through here, watch the model this evening start to kick off these individual storm cells. And that's why this evening into tonight, we just need to keep an eye out in this region for those to become a bit more organized. Probably their outflow ends up working together to produce a squall line along the main front. But as you can see on the backside, very heavy snow is expected out of this starting this afternoon or this evening. And then as we work our way into the overnight hours, this low just rapidly curls its way up. And again, by tomorrow morning on Tuesday, still quite a bit of a kind of a threat in here for ice, but on the backside, very heavy snow and very strong winds. Now we're going to watch this band, this long band of this is right along the front here of showers and storms that's going to move toward the Mississippi River Valley by 5 o'clock on Tuesday, which is where I've got this stopped. At that point, we've pushed the ice pretty far north, and all the snow is funneling in on the back side of this. And again, because this low isn't moving, this is going to be a lot of snow being picked up in this area with strong winds. But there will be some individual cells out ahead of this line. Some very strong storms are expected. Storm Prediction Center uses wording like large hail, strong straight line winds above 70 miles an hour. They're also concerned about the risk of long tracking tornadoes are possible with this. And then as we watch on Tuesday, the rain moves through the Midwest. The front goes right over the Mississippi River Valley and makes its way east by the time we get into about midday Wednesday. Now from here, I got to pick up with the multi-model analysis of the GFS on the right, or left, European on the right. So we've already seen through right about here. So let's pick this up on Wednesday evening and play through the overnight hours here on Thursday morning, getting into Thursday midday. There could again be some more ice piling up here if we get some cold air butting up against the Appalachian Mountains. But you'll notice that the back side of this, look at this large area of low pressure here, cut off from the flow, and snow continues to fall on the back side of this as we work our way into Friday. And that's when the system pushes into New England. So you can see that both models are anticipating the snow there. Now, after this goes through, the west is going to be quiet and it's going to get quite cold. But the European model has tried to sniff out something by early next week. Notice we get some lake effect snow over the weekend with that colder air coming in. I'll show you how cold in a second. But the European model is attempting to toss out another system here a week from today. Now, the likelihood of this verifying is low, but we're going to have to keep an eye out on it potentially being there about a week from today. But the lack of good onshore flow in the west is going to put them over to a drier time period. So let's stitch it all together. This is your next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation from the WPC. Heaviest rains are from the lower Mississippi River Valley over toward the mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas. On the backside, this is all snow, so there's well over an inch of liquid equivalent that could be here to make that snow. Notice how dry the west is. If you want to look at the probability of getting certain snowfall amounts, this is the chance of getting at least 3 inches. Here's the chance of getting at least 6 inches, and here's the chance of getting a foot. So we can now see that corridor along the northern edge of this system where those probabilities are relatively high. Now, the temperatures are going to be doing this. Quite warm out ahead of this system, but brutally cold behind it. That's Tuesday's high temperatures. So you can now see why we have the risk of the severe storms down here. Very unstable atmosphere. There's Wednesday, getting into Thursday. And by the time we get into Friday and Saturday, that's when the cold air really starts to dominate and take over. And you can see that the atmosphere is going to prefer broader troughing across North America as a lot of high latitude blocking takes place. And I'm going to cover that in a bit more detail to kind of explain how this all works. But today, just notice that the day 5 through 10 and 10 through 15 suggest that we finished the month of December with quite a bit of colder air coming out of the Canadian Prairie through the northern plains, Midwest, all the way to the East Coast. So this is really going to send a pretty good shock across the country in terms of much colder air. Now, the newest data was released on Friday from the Climate Prediction Center. This is their outlook for December 24th through January 6th. And they have a very La Nina look to this. This is exactly what we'd expect if there was a La Nina, almost about the start of the new year, with wet in the northwest, wet in the Ohio River Valley. If there's a chance where it could be drier and warmer than average, it's way south. but it looks as though we're going to finish 2022 and start 2023 with a very active pattern. And just because I'm getting asked a lot, to let you know, this kind of pattern really starts to improve the chances of a white Christmas. If you get some snow now, it sticks around, or if it does end up snowing right around the holiday, this will certainly improve those odds because of the persistence of the cold weather. Now, I mentioned this is very La Nina-like, but I want to make a point. It appears that the La Nina is making a big push right now to kind of reach its peak in strength. And we talked about that happening at some point in December. I think that after this big push, we're going to start to see those trade winds break up quite a bit more and other features taking over, especially the risk of ridging around the Aleutian Islands. We'll talk more about that tonight as well. And to finish this all up, I want to show you this weekend there were decent storms that moved through Argentina, producing in some places over an inch of rainfall, but it's going back over very dry from Paraguay to Rio Grande do Sul, Uruguay, and much of Argentina for the next 10 days, while above average rains hit most of Brazil's growing area, at least in the forecast here. So that's going to continue to push the Brazilian crop toward very large numbers and rob Argentina of good moisture, pushing those production values lower. And lastly, I just want to show you one map of global temperatures over the next 10 days. We've talked about how this cold air is being let out. But during this time period, it's very cold across much of Europe, especially Northern Europe. There was big snows this weekend in the UK. But also notice the major population centers in Asia are going to be colder than normal, as is Australia. So this particular setup is one where we do increase heating demand across the world because of the setup of the cold air in the Northern Hemisphere especially. So we'll add more to this and make it a little more in-depth tonight, and I'll talk to you then. Thanks.